Hello, and welcome to another episode of Around the Verse, our weekly look at Star Citizen's ongoing development. I'm Sandy Gardner.
And I'm Chris Roberts.
It's great to have you back, Chris.
Yeah, it's quite nice to be back here in LA. I did enjoy getting to spend a few weeks with our Foundry 42 team in the UK and Germany, reviewing all the awesome work they've been up to on Squadron 42 and Star Citizen.
One of the many things being worked on by the Foundry 42 team is the Tumbril Cyclone, which was unveiled last week. On today's episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at this rugged new ground vehicle.
Plus, we examine the tech behind game-wide persistence by showing you how it is used to get one ship to persist inside another ship's hangar.
But first, let's check in with Austin and Turbulent for their monthly updates.
Hey guys, Jake Ross here, producer in Austin. We're picking up speed with Gamescom and the 3.0 release fast approaching. Let's jump right in and see what's been going on here in Austin this month. To start, over the last month, LA Engineering refactored the shopping code enough so that now Austin Design Team can start plugging the items back into the shops. This also includes a first pass of getting the kiosks up and running for the commodity trading. We have been focusing on getting all of the shops related to the PU stations and landing zones functional first, but we will also be making a pass with the Area 18 shops as well. We've now got the ability to purchase armor piece by piece, so we'll be adding that to the feature list. We've also finally implemented the remaining ships into the Price Fixer tools. The Price Fixer is a spreadsheet that allows us to see each ship's physical loadout, see the price of each item in that loadout, and determine the overall cost of each ship. This is important because it will allow us to more accurately assign each ship their respawn values, which covers the cost and respawn timers for the ships being released in 3.0. We also use this tool as a good way to gauge whether or not the ships we're building are over or underpowered for their intended purpose. We're very close to completing this task, and we'll be moving on to balancing the shop inventories and item prices that you'll see in 3.0 after that. Lead designer Rob Reiniger took a trip to the Frankfurt office this month to work with the AI and Subsumption team and made a ton of progress on getting Miles Eckhart, the mission giver, set up and ready to go. We figured out a lot of work on the feather blending system and got him working with a small subset of his animations. Since that time, we have received some additional code support to allow Reputation to dictate his conversation paths with the player. We literally just received the ability to assign specific missions with mission brief tags, so we can have him playing different lines depending on what missions are available. Beyond this, we've just been plugging away trying to make the mission giver experience as good and as polished as possible for the 3.0 release. We can't wait to get Miles Eckhart into your hands and get his missions for you guys. On the art side, Josh Coons finished images and videos for the Cutlass Black and moved on to create the base material and white box meshes for the Cutlass variants, the red and the blue. However, while he will complete the first pass on the exterior look for the Cutlass variants, he will move on to the Constellation Phoenix next to allow design some time to flesh out some key gameplay systems for the Cutlasses a little bit more. Chris Smith has been working on bugs for the Hornet and the Constellation Andromeda. He will start moving on a promo video for the Constellation Aquila next. The backend services team have been supporting 3.0 features and preparing for the deployment of Diffusion. The game servers now have full access to the Diffusion API, and we'll start using it with the shopping service in 3.0. In addition, we have started converting our two monolithic services, the Persistence Cache and General Instance Manager, into smaller, stateless, fully diffusionized services. Out of those two services will come nearly a dozen smaller services, each with very specific roles that can be scaled independently. These will provide more reliability and performance. Most of our work has been lower level, under the hood type changes, which do not have any front-facing bling to show off. Going forward, we're plotting the path beyond 3.0 and starting to build many small services that will provide functionality and support for a large number of gameplay features and help unload work from all the dedicated game servers into our distributed infrastructure. This month in the PU animation team, we started the research and development for how to implement our wildline system. A wildline, broadly speaking, is any dialogue spoken by an NPC. The wildlines we are working on are things like greetings, cheers, shouts, and other verbal expressions barked out by NPCs. We are working with a new technology called feather blending, mentioned previously, which allows us to blend our performance capture of wildlines with a large number of usable animations. This will give us as close to our actor's performance as possible, while still keeping the functionality of what the NPC is doing intact. We are also going through all of our existing animations, and we are filling in any gaps missing from the original performance capture with new transition animations. The Austin ship animation team has been hard at work with our continued efforts to refine the cockpit and turret experiences. We are in the midst of an R&D phase of implementing button presses, utilizing the Item 2.0 features. This has helped finalizing dashboard and cockpit metrics across the different ships that use the same cockpit type. The UK engineers have refactored some back-end systems, allowing us to fully implement the blending of the base G-force pose blend spaces, allowing additive animations for button presses, as well as playing different hit reaction animations based off of hit direction, damage amount, and overall health of the ship. As always, we are diligently at work fixing bugs for our next big release. The DevOps team continues to work on increasing capacity with our build and deployment pipelines in preparation for 3.0. They've also been making additional changes and bug fixes to support the new Delta patcher. And so far, the internal tests have been really promising. Our corporate technology team, or IT department, has just completed another major upgrade to the Austin network and added more hardware to the build system so we can deliver more builds in parallel. Our resident audio team member, Jason Cobb, has had his hands full this month as well. He's continued work on derelict crash site sound design for the different moon environments, performed a variety of particle audio implementation experiments for revamped ship debris noises. He's play-tested and mixed refinements for ship emergency state audio and captures sound effects for various props and materials as opportunities arise. July has also been an exciting month for Austin QA, and it's impossible to describe everything we've been working on, but here are a few things. We've been testing the new Cutlass Black, while in Stanton we've had new missions, recs, and PCs as a big ongoing focus. Ship testing has continued to be very busy as more ship families that have been converted to Item 2.0 come online. Large-scale playtests for Arena Commander, Star Marine, and Stanton have been ongoing weekly alongside our LA QA cohorts, and we've also been conducting cross-studio playtests with the team in the UK. We've also been testing more mobiGlas applications like Star Map, the Personal Manager, the Mission Manager, and the Mission Board, as they've become available to QA over the last few weeks. Some other fun items we've been testing are character gravity and freefall, as well as continued testing of cargo mechanics. We're still providing support for the animation team here in Austin as well by continuing to clean up mocap files to help free up our animators for other work. Our normal engine and editor testers are still extremely busy testing new tech for the developers, such as capsule-based actor entity, the entity component update scheduler, and director-actor animation and control. Some features like the new stamina and oxygen breathing systems are getting some balance changes, with QA helping our designers there as well. The player relations team has been busy recruiting new team members in anticipation for 3.0. In addition to starting to grow the Avocati ranks, the team is adding 4 people to the Austin office. We're excited to have these new additions join the team in the run-up to learning and testing for 3.0. That's everything we got to show you for this update, guys. We look forward to delivering everything we've been working on to y'all in the upcoming release and at Gamescom. Thanks for all you do for us, and we'll see you in the verse.
Hi guys, this is Benoit from Turbulent, and this is your platform update. This week we're going to hear from Paige Saunders, who's going to talk to us about the upcoming ship matrix changes. And we're also going to be talking with Victor Bonnet, who's also known on the forums and the chat as Fulgrim, to talk to us about the next Spectrum update.
I'm Paige, and I'm a full-stack developer here at Turbulent in Montreal. I'm working on updating the ship specifications in the database to reflect more accurately where CIG are at with their vision on the game and the ships that are in it. A lot of new things have been added to the ship matrix, so we're taking the opportunity right now to include things like the quantum drives and the quantum fuel tanks, as well as smoothing out all the existing components to make it more clear exactly what is in each ship. The challenge with the ship matrix has been including the new ground vehicles into it. So we've added in the capability to add ships, ground vehicles, and anything else that comes up. There's a new sizing scheme for ships. So you have weapons maintaining the size 1 through 12, and the other components maintain a more easy to understand small, medium, large system that's related to the ship sizes so that you can tell what goes in what ship. And whether a ship has a size that's larger or smaller than it would typically have. So we've redesigned the ship detail page so that you can tell for each component what size it is and see from the icon what type it is, as well as what can be upgraded to and what could also fit in the slot. Then you can zoom out and see an overview of the ship with all the slots that are currently populated and the slots that are available for you to upgrade your ship with. Backers have noticed that the ship matrix in the past hasn't got a lot of love, so we've reworked the database to make it a lot easier to update. From this point on, we're going to be able to, as things change in the game, quickly get in there, update the ship, make sure that it's up to date and reflects accurately exactly what the gaming experience is going to be.
Hi everyone, I'm Victor, QA at Turbulent. You probably know me as Fulgrim on Spectrum. I am the QA on the RSI website, so Spectrum and the website and a little bit of the launcher. So I'm going to talk to you today about Spectrum. So Spectrum 036 is now on the PTU with the Evocati. 036 includes new features like the new text editor. So when you will write something on your post, for example, you will have new tools like hyperlinks, hyperlink formatting, like the emoji toolbox will be there, and more important, the preview of the post and drafts. So now, when, for example, you're busy typing your thread and you want to check what your friends are saying on the forum or on the chat lobby, you can just go check what they do and everything will be saved. So now we have drafts. 036 includes the mini profile. The mini profile is like the current profile, but with new features like the post count and karma. So the post count will be imported from the old forums, so people with a lot of posts in the old forum won't lose all these posts. And the karma is once you get every time you get an upvote on a thread you made or a comment, you will get 1 karma point, and it will be on your profile too. So we'll add a new feature too, which is the jump to new track reply. So, for example, you know I'm a staff, so I will post something in a thread, and a backer will be able to just go down the thread, see the small icon of staff reply, click on the icon, and will be directly jump to the reply of the staff. And if there are more than one reply of staff replies, you will be able to jump between the replies with a small button, so everything is good. This feature is available too for organizations, so you can just set up it in your settings and use it. This is a feature that you asked and we delivered.
Thanks guys for your update. A little quick note on the launcher. The team has been working very hard with CIG engineering to try to get major progress done on the new Delta launcher, which comes with the Delta Patcher, which is a faster patching method. The team has been really working on refreshing some of the UI elements. We're keeping the same UI base, but we're refreshing it with some of the 3.0 new imagery. We're changing the entire core of the application in this update, and so we're going in full swing, testing on multiple platforms, installation paths. At the same time, most of our engineering team has been working on getting most of the digital distribution channels ready so that we can get those objects as fast as possible to you when you request a game version. So that requires also security reviews and deployment scripts. But that's basically where we're at on the launcher. We're really working hard. Everybody's working really hard to get this patcher out. And for you guys, for 3.0, we're hoping we're going to make it, but we're pushing real hard. So that's our update for this week on Platform. See you guys next time.
Miles Eckhart is proving to be quite the popular test subject for various systems.
Definitely, he's the new cafeteria, really. The design and subsumption teams have really put him through the paces to get stuff like the reputation system and feather blending working. All that effort is going to make for more interesting and realistic NPC interactions in the game, which is our goal.
With the introduction of our vast planetary tech, another aspect of the game that's recently gotten some extra attention is our fleet of ground vehicles. Last Friday, we revealed the Tumbril Cyclone.
Yeah, we did. It's very, very cool. And let's take a closer look at the Cyclone and its many variants.
My name is Paul Jones. I'm one of the art directors here at Foundry 42.
My name is Stephen Hosmer, and I am a technical designer at Cloud Imperium.
We're sort of starting to enter into the world of land vehicles. That gives us a wide brief. The buggy, it's a good one. This is a new manufacturer. It's always exciting to have a sort of clean slate. According to the law, this manufacturer, this company, been around for a bit. They used to sort of provide sort of super rugged vehicles for the military.
So the Cyclone is intended to be a land vehicle where you get in and drive around on the surface of a planet. It's supposed to be like a fun vehicle to drive, fast. It has four-wheel drive. It's got four-wheel steering also. Something that you're supposed to be having fun while you're driving around on the planet, taking jumps off ramps, just doing all the things that you can in a wheeled vehicle.
You can sort of tell that it's got military roots in the way that it's very functional, but there is that sort of hint of knowing its market, and it just wants a little bit of flair. So there's a touch of artistic flair, designed aesthetics in there. And now this is sort of like their first entry into manufacturing and providing and selling a new vehicle. It's based in functionality, basically. It's design, so it's very much approached from that point of view.
The Ursa rover, I would call it a tortoise, and the Cyclone, I'd call it a hare, where you have the rover. It's going to be slow and steady. You've got the Cyclone, which is going to be fast and fun to drive, and then the Nox is going to be like a speedster that's going to get out there, but it's not going to take as many hits. So it's kind of like in between. That
pretty much defines quite a few things right off the bat, just ergonomics, what it's meant to do, whether it's, like I said, it's not meant to be a crazy sort of six-legged vehicle or anything. We want it, it needed to be fast. It needed to look super rugged. It could take a hit. It's still sort of, it has open elements to it. So it's, you're still going to sort of feel the wind in your hair, so to speak, if you have any hair. We sort of hit it quite early on, actually, in the process. Probably within the first two weeks, we knew where we were going with it. So the modularity is something that was specified by the design department. And so I think it works really well. And, it's kind of, it's very similar to sort of real world in the sense of having a truck, and then you've got your flatbed at the back, and then you can sort of add and subtract, basically.
The first variant is just the base. It's just a regular buggy with a flatbed on the back that's meant to carry cargo. So if you're just sitting around on your homestead and you want something to go from place to place and carry a little bit of cargo, that's the one for you. The next one is the turret version, the TR, and that's mostly a military version, kind of harkening back to the old days of Tumbril. It has a turret, so you've got a third seat for turret operator, and it's got a 360-degree arc, and it can fire any direction. It's kind of like an infantry support vehicle. Like if you're boots on the ground operation, this is your cavalry. This is the thing that's going to get in, get around all the other troops and kind of support them. The next one is the Recon, and the Recon is our N version, I believe, and that one's meant to be something that goes like under the radar. It's got stealth components, and then you can kind of get into it like an enemy base, kind of scout around, use your radar to find emplacements or something like that. Use your beacons. You can kind of put them down, use them to like light up a target that you need like the guys in the sky to come down and rain fire upon. Or you can just use it as an exploration vehicle. You can go out, you can map terrain, you can go onto one of the planets that has like a dust storm or something. You can drop it outside of the dust storm, drive in, find whatever you're looking for, whatever objective you're trying to find, place your beacons and say, okay, hey, this is a landing spot in this storm. You can bring your ship in, you can find those beacons, they can call you down, you can pick up whatever you need to get there. The next version is going to be the racing version, the RC. It's mostly just, we're taking the base Cyclone and we're putting basically nitrous oxide in the thing. You get the boost on that thing, you can take those jumps as fast as possible, you can get around as quick as possible. It's like if you're like in Baja, you're like going over the dunes and you're like hitting the boost and you're just going as fast as possible. And then the last one is the anti-air vehicle. And that one has two size 2 missile racks. So you can either have a size 2 missiles or 4 size 1 missiles. And then it also has a countermeasure package, which includes chaff, flare, smoke screen, and a size 1 EMP.
You know, you always think it's good, it's interesting, it's, you know, it's fresh, but you sort of sometimes you think, oh yeah, we'll nail this, no problem. And then there's just the little things that trip you up and keep tripping you up. And it's just getting aware of, you know, all the things that we need to take into account, you know, in enters and exits, you know, the whole cabin, all the instrumentation has to be in the right place, you know, and you're constantly sort of jiggling, trying to hit what the game needs and then what us as artists want to sort of push in there and sort of experiment with. You know, there are a couple of things that maybe we could have improved on, but we'll, you know, when it goes to the production team, we'll have a chat with Nate, we'll have the kickoff, and I'll be like, okay, this went well, I was less happy with this. You know, maybe you guys can, you know, flesh this out a little more, sort of really advance. Again, the manufacturer, so we know, you know, when we're building Tumbril vehicles, okay, this is what we do. These are the materials. This is the, you know, this is the cloth. This is the metal. This is the paint. This is the color. Here's our decals. Here's our UI style, and just sort of clarify all that basically. Probably the most challenging thing is probably always the deadline. The beauty of being this being the first one, you have a certain amount of naivety in terms of you're not quite sure. You know you're doing a land vehicle, but you're not quite sure of the problems you're going to hit. And often with this sort of stuff, it's very much, you know, you make one change and it has a ripple effect to the whole vehicle. So you make a change to the front, suddenly the front's out of balance with the back, so now we've got to change the back. Okay, the back's changed now, so that's affected something somewhere else. And so it's trying to manage all those sort of little tweaks and changes and still hit the deadline basically. So that's always a tough one for me. I mean, we always do it, but it's always team effort. Let's, you know, how do we do it?
So the Cyclone is going to be a great addition. Not only does it look like a lot of fun to drive, all the variants should provide for some pretty interesting and varied gameplay.
Of course, one of the main questions that's popped up is what ships will it fit into? If you're looking for that answer, then check out this week's Cyclone Q&A.
There you go. And if you're interested in knowing the tech involved in making that happen, then this next segment is for you.
As you'll see, getting a ship inside another ship's hangar and keeping it there isn't as easy as it seems.
It never is.
My name is Chad McKinney, and I'm a gameplay programmer here in the Los Angeles studio. We're talking about shipping ships, which is a topic that touches on a few different systems. On one hand, you have just kind of the physics and game code involved to actually make the ship and ship behavior work consistently, but there's actually a whole larger other topic that it touches on, which is persistence. How do you get the ship in there in the first place? You can just drive it in there, but if you park your ship at a space station, log off and log back on, you really want that ship to be there the next time you spawn it. You want you to have your Dragonfly or your Nox. And so the question is, how do we get there? In 2.6, this isn't possible. You won't get that ship back in your constellation or whatever. It won't be there. But if you do want it to be there, we need a whole host of technologies in our engine and in our backend services to support that behavior. It's this little thing that seems so small that actually requires a lot of effort to make work correctly, but that effort also enables a lot of other behaviors in the game that previously weren't possible. So right now in 2.6, what we have is effectively a very simple system that just tracks player accounts and specifically loadouts and player accounts. So it tracks your specific loadout that you have equipped, as well as any vehicles that you own and their loadouts. This is fine for the gameplay that we have right now in the game. So yeah, you'll have your weapons the next time you log into the game. If you do a modification on your ship, it'll be there the next time you log into the game. But if you make any kind of change in the game world, or in kind of inside your ship, that's not going to be reflected in any way because the persistence database doesn't know anything about it. This is a great limitation whenever you consider the kind of game that we're trying to make. We want to make this large game, this living world that can change and be dynamic, but this persistence behavior that we have is completely ignoring all of the nuances that are required to achieve that behavior. One large part of that is this fact that we're so tied to loadouts. Because of that, that means there's no concept of a loose entity. So let's say you have a ship, a constellation, and you park a Nox inside it. The Nox isn't attached to the constellation, right? It's not on the wing affixed to a gimbal where a turret would be. It's just lying there in the ship. In order to make that work, we have to completely refactor the way that game code handles persistent data and make it in such a way that instead of tracking accounts, instead we're tracking a map of entities that point to parents and potential item ports that they're attached to and offsets. What this requires is that we need to look in the persistent data record for the ship. We're going to find all of the children of that ship. So we're going to find all of the item port attachments, that'll be all the guns. And now that we've made some refactors in the persistent database, we can also find loose entities in that ship. So it's going to find the cargo item that we left in there, as well as that Nox that we left in there as well. Loose items now also have offset information in the persistent data record that informs the spawning code where to line them up. So we spawn this ship, the constellation, we spawn all its children, we start spawning loose items, and we have to spawn them in the correct location in zone space so they line up correctly. We also need to introduce them correctly into the zones of their parents so that they don't fall out. If you don't put the Nox in the constellation zone, they'll either collide and explode or it'll fall out and just leak into space. So we have to do a lot of fix-up in spawning code. But if all goes to plan, we spawn everything in the right order, in the right place, in the right zone. Comes in, you see it, it looks exactly like you saw it last and works perfectly. This makes it to where something doesn't have to be in a loadout for it to be physically owned by another entity. But that kind of touches on another thing. The old methodology only had one concept of ownership. You just owned something or you didn't. And that's fine, again, whenever you're dealing with your ships. If you have an attachment, like a gun, you've bought that, or you've acquired it through some means, and that means that you can attach it or not. But in gameplay, you may get a hold of something that you didn't buy. It may be in the game world, or it may be something that you want to take from another player. How do we track that in persistence? Well, previously, there was no distinction. What we need is a distinction between physical ownership and legal ownership, so that you can legally own something, you bought it, but you don't physically have access anymore because somebody took it from you. It's in their ship now. That was another large set of changes to make this distinction between physical ownership and legal ownership. It had large ramifications on how we store and manipulate the data. It had large ramifications on how we do this thing called network ownership. Originally, whenever a server would connect to the backend services, the persistent cache that the player connected to would make a request for all of the items that the player has. And it would then ask the server to entitle these to the new account. Then those items are sent to the server and cached locally. They're also sent to the client and cached locally on the client. What this meant was that there's a large set of data that exists both on the game server and on the client that is mirrored. But if any changes need to happen to that persistent data, changes would have to happen synchronously both on the server and on the client. And this is a large technical problem. Previously, we kind of avoided it because we didn't really have this dynamic behavior. We had some shop behavior that could change it, and we had some kind of hack code in place to manipulate it on the client and the server synchronously. But once we start having larger systems directly manipulating this persistent data, having fragmented clones of the data across the network is a huge issue, both for security as well as for behavior and sanity of the data. Instead, we've needed to move over to a system where the server is the authoritative owner of the data, and clients don't actually have a copy anymore. Instead, they have to make queries to the server whenever they want to display something. So let's say you go to a kiosk, you want to buy some cargo. Well, instead of directly checking the data that we have cached on the client, we make a request to the server. The server will collect all the information that's required and send it to the client. This makes it to where it's always up to date, it's always correct, and everybody in the network always sees the same information. It also makes it to where some nefarious behavior on the behalf of the client isn't possible anymore, because we've kind of closed off the ability to introduce information that wasn't there to start with. One issue that we have right now is that I mentioned before was physical ownership and legal ownership. Well, if we want to establish physical ownership, that means that we also need to allow for transfer of that physical ownership. To give an example, let's say there's some cargo that's on in an outpost on a planet. That cargo might be spawned in with something called an object container, which is just something that we've touched on in previous material that we put out. And so this object container just contains entities that get loaded into the game. If you want to pick up that cargo and put it into your ship, there's several steps that have to happen to make that work correctly. First, we need to do the persistent transfer of the piece of cargo, but there's an immediate problem that we run into. The cargo in the object container isn't a persistent entity. It got loaded in with the object container. It was never persistent to start with. So we need to do something called promotion to make it into a persistent entity and to make it what's called network replicated. Then we have to make some modifications to the way the object containers work. Object containers assume a certain fixed set of entities will get loaded in, and we're actually modifying this list. So we have to modify the way the object containers work so that they can have changes to their entity list networked across the network, and to support late joiners so that anybody who joins in later into the game sees the changes to the object container. So we've done a promotion to the cargo item. We've removed it from the object container. Now we're going to transfer the persistent ownership of that to the player who picked it up. The player has it. It's in the persistent data record. Now the player walks into their ship and they put it into their ship. We do another physical transfer of ownership from the player to the ship. The ship now physically owns it, and the persistent data record is updated to where the piece of cargo is in the ship. Now, if the player logs off and the ship gets unspawned, next time they spawn the ship, piece of cargo is going to be in there. However, if somebody steals that ship, then they will have access to that piece of cargo as well, and it'll be under their physical ownership, even though the first player yourself legally owns it. In order to get ships and ships working requires identifying physical ownership and legal ownership. It requires doing all this persistent tracking. But it's that same technology that also allows us to make our game world at large more dynamic and have more life as far as its behavior. So that means that you can make a change now to the world, and that can be tracked. There are some limitations still. Changes in the world at large are going to still be what is called session level persistence. So you can make a change to a planet, or you can make a change to a space station, and we can track that for the lifetime of that server, but it's tied to that server. But that does mean that you can start actually changing the world. If there was some cargo at that space station, you can take it and somebody else won't see it anymore. Or you can maybe leave something behind that they will see. If you left your ship there, well, that ship's still there, and someone else can come along while you're walking around on that planet. They see this nice ship just sitting there, well, maybe they'll take it away, and it won't be there anymore. And now we can begin hooking in criminality systems to maybe give someone a wanted level whenever they've taken a ship that isn't theirs, or taken some cargo off a ship that wasn't theirs to start with. It also means that if you, for instance, want to fly under the radar, have some stolen cargo in your ship that's not in your cargo grid, so it's not in your manifest, you can do that, but that leaves it open for other people to then take your ship or take that loose cargo easier. And it's going to make pirating more dangerous, and it's going to make cargo more interesting, I think, and other things in the game as well, whenever you can take it from somebody else. Another thing this allows for is collecting, right? So you can, if you find a Big Benny's machine in the world, you can kick it around, maybe with another ship. You got to do some work, but if you try hard enough, maybe you can get this Big Benny's machine in, say, your constellation Andromeda. Cool, now you have a Big Benny's machine and you take it with you and you own that thing. Well, you physically own it at least. You sign off, you sign back on again, it's still in your ship. Maybe you can find another one somewhere, start a collection. You can have 3 or 4 of these. You can trade with your friends. Give them a Big Benny's machine, maybe they give you a weapon. It allows for some more emergent gameplay. You don't necessarily have to have a gameplay system in the game that is specifically tracking Big Benny's machines, but you can still play with them because now you physically have access to them, and that access is tracked in your persistence data. We're starting to introduce diffusion, which is a whole new way of interacting with the backend services. That gives us some very interesting possibilities for the future. For 3.0, it's just going to be a small set of diffusion services that are going to be online. But moving forward, we're going to greatly increase the number of these diffusion services. And that has some really interesting impacts on persistent gameplay, because it means that you can now have some diffusion service that's tracking an economy, and persistent changes that you make in the world will impact the economy. It'll impact the cost of items, it'll impact the location of them, maybe the delivery of them. There could be services that are delivering missions. The missions can be based on persistent changes in the world. You can have services based on pirate activity or services based on AI activity. It allows us to have the combination of persistent data and persistent changes to be utilized across the server instances, and have these services enable more kind of higher level behavior and higher level modifications to in-game actions based on diffusion services. We're taking it to the next level to where we can get a more global, universal look at persistence. We can start caring not only about player persistence, but the ship's persistence, space station persistence, planet persistence, universe persistence. Ideally, we want to move to something that we call the server mesh, which has either a larger or a single mesh of servers that govern the entire universe, and all the players are interacting with each other across this large server mesh. That will allow some truly persistent behavior in the world, so that any one change that you make on a planet, any planet or on any station, is going to be persisted for all the players across the entire game. It will make it to where if I leave something on a planet, it's not in one server, it's on that planet. There is one planet, and that has that change. So with 3.0, we're introducing these serialized persistent variables that will allow gameplay features to start tracking persistent information. This will include features such as ship health and player health as well, and stamina. So if your vehicle has the wing blown off of it and you respawn your vehicle, it's not going to have that wing. If it becomes unflyable, you're going to have to start engaging with some of the other gameplay systems that we have. So for instance, you could have it repaired at a repair station, or if it's beyond repair or you don't want to go through the effort, you can make an insurance claim on it if you have insurance for the ship. This will be expanded to include other behaviors in the game. So like I said, damage and health for the vehicle, but also stamina for the player. So certain kinds of effects will be persistently applied to your player. There will be other things in the game, such as ammo. Your ammo is going to be persistent. If you run out of ammo, you're going to have to buy more ammo. It's not going to be the way it's been, where you can just fire away and you don't have to be so concerned about the consequences. Additionally, there'll be other things. The interactable entities in the game will now have the capacity where we can identify certain entities and make their states persistent. So say there's a data pad that you interact with, and maybe you switch its behavior to be in an on state as opposed to an off. That could be tracked and be persistent. We're identifying every day new places in game code where we have certain behaviors that have traditionally just been networked across the network to keep the clients and server in sync. But it's very easy to just turn on this persistent flag and start having that now be a persistent value that's tracked across game sessions. So we're looking for these opportunities to take these gameplay behaviors and make them more permanent as far as the lifetime of their effect. I think it'll be a very interesting world to play in, and a very interesting set of gameplay features I really know their game has. So that piece was a great way to show how all our systems tie together under the hood.
It was a massive undertaking to lay that groundwork, but it gives the game a ton of functionality once everything is up and running.
And that's all for today's episode. Thanks to our subscribers for supporting all of our shows. Tomorrow we have a special happy hour game dev planned. Live designer Gareth Bourne will be building a solar system using the Sol Ed tool with help from the viewers. Tune into our Twitch channel at 11 a.m. Pacific to catch it.
Yeah, that sounds like that'll be a lot of fun. So you don't want to miss that. Finally, thanks to all our backers, we couldn't build this game without your continued support.
We could not. And until next week, we will see you
around the verse. Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.